Hello, everyone. I am going to ask Justine, Arndt, and Carlos to join me, please, in the stage. Um, my name is Daniel Olarte. I work at the Celo Foundation supporting education and community development programs. And today we have a conversation about onboarding people into Web3, Web3 for all, and sharing value. So first, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you all for being here with me on the stage today. By the way, you all look amazing. Meeting you all in person is been great after just knowing your avatars online. And I'm sorry if I scare you with how tall I was. I've been hearing that a lot. I wanted to share something. I was invited last week to a conversation on Twitter Spaces with the Web3 familia, which I know there is Magdalena's here. I haven't met her. I want to meet you, Magdalena. The Web3 familia is doing amazing work, bringing more Latinos into crypto. And at the end of that conversation, Francisco Izaguirre was asked to make the final remarks. And he said something that to me was really meaningful. He told everyone that they belong here. He said, you belong here. And that to me, it's really important. That's kind of like a value that I go to work with when I wake up and then go to a computer, go to work. So I wanted to start a conversation with asking you, what does belonging in Web3 means to you? So perhaps, Justine, if you want to get us started.
Sure. So I think at Rabbithole we're very values-driven, and we've interviewed contributors to ask why they chose to contribute to our community versus any other. And a lot of them said that they felt like they understood what our beliefs were, and this feeling of shared beliefs or working towards a shared purpose. And then, of course, a big part of our mission is making sure that Web3 is accessible and kind of creating pathways so that anybody can come in and participate in whatever way they want to.
How about you, Arndt?
Well, to me, and I think to us at Cryptohunt, it means that you walk into a room and you don't feel stupid. And I think that especially in the space that we're in, it's very hard to understand even the basics, right? It's not very inclusive in the way that we talk with weird language, we use terms that people don't understand, and we don't really realize that because we're so in the Web3 space. So to me, belonging means that you have the basic building blocks to understand what the technology does, what it's about, and who it's for. And so that's what we are really passionate about.
That's great. What about you, Carlos?
Hi. Well, for me, like belonging, also it means like purpose. People need to have purpose because we have two types of people, the purpose-driven people and the money-driven people. So I think that Web3 and belonging, it starts in that point, if you are a purpose-driven person or a money-driven person. And also, all of this need to be aligned because like that are humans, and that's why like the girl that was here before was talking about people is going to come to crypto when they earn crypto, it's okay. But also I think that the purpose of being in crypto and the people when understand the purpose is what is going to make a successful path.
Awesome. So for those who don't know, Arndt is here from Cryptohunt. He's one of the co-founders of Cryptohunt. They just launched on Celo. They're now running their beta launch, I believe. So I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you what you have learned from your beta, and then also what you think are the needs of those people getting into crypto right now.
Yes, so first of all, very happy to be here because we do feel like we belong here.
You do belong here.
And we do, yes. So we're very attracted to the Celo ecosystem because it is so inclusive. So let me just explain what Cryptohunt is first, so there's context there. So it's basically the front door to crypto. it's a website or web experience where people who are not native to crypto can learn the basics and sort of educate themselves about what it is so that they can onboard into it. And then at the end of it, you might do a little quiz, or you might take a little learning experience and we'll give you a little crypto or an NFT in return. And so you kind of take your first baby steps towards using something that's actually useful, right? And so yeah, we launched in closed beta, I think 2 weeks ago. Very happy to see people really using the platform to learn the basic building blocks. So what that means is, for example, we have a collaboration with Mula, right? And so we explain what they do, and then you get a little bit of Mu, and then we send you an email. So what do you do with the Mu? And as a consequence, you kind of learn about that. And so we're really excited about people learning through these experiences. Secondly, I think it becomes very clear to us, 45% or so of our users are newbies to crypto, that there's a huge demand for everyday people to learn about crypto. So, for example, in the United States, there's probably 100 million people who are invested in stock, normal stock in the market, and almost nobody has crypto, right? It's very little. And it's because these people are intimidated, they don't understand it, and so most of our audience is that, and it's really cool to see that when you open your doors, and you press the red button, and they come in and they are who you thought they were going to be. So yeah, very excited about that.
Then I had a question for Justine. So at Rabbithole, you guys have this intention of turning speculators or observers into contributors, and that to me has lots of meaning. So I wanted to ask you what contributors are for you. How does someone become a contributor on Rabbithole, and how you see protocols using Rabbithole to find those contributors?
Yeah. So Rabbithole finds or works with users when they already have a wallet and some crypto in it, and then the question they're asking is, what can I do with this? So we're finding either new users or people that have been involved in this space primarily for speculation, and then guiding them through how they can actually use the applications and get more actively involved in the ecosystem, which we think is critical to kind of the industry maturing into the next phase. What we've been focused on more recently is helping, is kind of like looking at the tasks they've completed on our site and creating the concept of skills or on-chain credentials with those. So you can prove that a user knows something about DeFi, DAOs, or NFTs. And now what we're doing is building kind of community-led working groups that eventually will be our DAO, where users can take those skills and then gain practical experience in applying those. So for example, we have a DAO skill, and you can come to our community-led meta governance group and actually vote with the tokens that we hold in our treasury and gain experience being an active governance contributor. And our hope is that over time, contributors learn how to do that at Rabbithole and then go do that for other DAOs.
Super cool, super cool. And I know Carlos, and again, for those who don't know Carlos and the work he does for Mundocrypto. Mundocrypto is one of the largest Spanish crypto academies here in Spain and the world, with lots of people going through their programs. And I know your approach is a little bit long-term. You also care about skills. You care about people learning the skills they need to find jobs. Earlier today or yesterday, I believe we were talking about the concept of professionalization. So I wanted to ask you to expand on that concept before we get into what you just talked about, Justine, certification and kind of like evidence of having learned something.
Okay, sure. Well, for me, I think that the crypto space needs to grow, and one way the crypto space is going to grow is like being socially correct. When people outside the crypto space see like crypto that is socially correct, then they come, because we have like the early adopters, but we have a lot of people that is not going to enter because they are afraid of crypto. And what happens if we need to grow crypto space? What we need to do, first of all, is having a lot of companies that provide services or other things. And that companies need people. If we bring traditional people to crypto market, they have a lot of skills, but there is not a match. and it's difficult to add enough value to that companies. That's why I care about professionalization, because people with background in traditional markets, if we show them the overview of crypto like NFTs, DeFi, tokenization, metaverse, gaming, all the stuff, then that people are going to incorporate a lot of value. Doesn't matter the department, if it's marketing or another type of products. So that is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, super cool. Professionalization is a concept that sometimes doesn't sit well in crypto. I feel people are trying to find ways to represent reputation in some other ways. So this is where we talk about NFTs, NFT certificates, badges. So that's becoming a trend right now. So I wanted to turn the conversation about that. I wanted to know how you guys are handling certification from perhaps if it is more conventional with professional certificates, paper certificates, or into kind of like digital certificates for everything people learn. So yeah, this is more of like an open question. How are you guys approaching certificates and badges or whatnot? Justine, if you want to start, I'm sorry.
Sure. So Rabbithole's a little bit old, just over a year old. And our first year, we were focused on a product called Quest, which is where users would come, do different tasks on a protocol, and then in exchange for doing those tasks, get rewarded in the native token. Now we're kind of expanding upon that and focusing more on what we call skills, which are saying, okay, you've done this collection of tasks, maybe it's stake, swap, lend, and borrow. So then you could earn what we call our DeFi skill. And so everything is on-chain based on transaction history. And we look at this as an opportunity to kind of start with a potentially more level playing field, as there isn't like an established credential for what makes an expert in Web3. And so our approach is really to just make the barrier literally just doing these small transactions, proving that you know how to use the protocols, and then eventually working with us to contribute to those protocols. Right now, our skills are just verified internally, but in the near future, they'll be soul-bound NFTs.
What about you, Carlos? I would love to connect those concepts, those two concepts. I recently saw a tweet by an entrepreneur in Argentina that was showing his CV made of POAPs and talking about how he thinks that the future of your CV is going to be all the events you attended to. But at the same time, I have heard from developers in Africa and South America that they want a proper certificate, a proper education to access a proper job. So yeah, how do you bridge those two worlds?
I think that to create an optimized path between your education and then incorporate into the job market, the cool thing are NFTs, because you can track all what is happening. And all that activities or things that she was talking about, you can apply it and you can like start achieving some levels of skills, and you can start showing to the world. And anyone can change that because are your NFTs. So companies can come and see who have done that levels, and it's like a standard way. So maybe I think like in the future, a lot of companies, it's like the English Cambridge exam or something like that, but with NFTs for the upcoming Web3 mass adoption. So the key point here is to look how to create that standards and that skills, and how you're going to measure that skills to create that personal reputation of each one.
And I do on Cryptohunt, I know you guys are experimenting with the concept of peer reviews and kind of like creating a space for discussion. So people will do kind of like a process of project discovery as a community. How are you approaching that sense of community building and certification?
Yeah, so for us, it's probably not so much about having something that said that you know about Project X or you've learned something, because it's more the intrinsic motivation of someone to learn that drives them there. I think for us, it's really important, like what do people do with that knowledge, right? So for example, if you take a little class, do you just do that because you want the 3 Celo? Or do you do it and then you buy some more Celo, you use the Valora wallet, you make 25% interest on your investment, right? Or do you leave a review on Celo saying like, this thing is cool, I like that they have these values, right? So when we see that, I think that's like our type of certificate that we really care about, our North Stars, like are people actually getting engaged with the product that they learned about.
Yeah, so actually you bring up a problem that we encounter all the time when we try to work with learn and earn projects, which is what happens after they complete the quest, for example. And I would love to hear, especially from Justine and Carlos, on what are your insights from what happens after someone goes through, say, one of the new skills Rabbithole has, or after one of your 6 months program. What's happening with those? Can you call them contributors? Can you call them crypto savvy if they were crypto curious before? Does that, like, what's going on after they go through your programs?
I think what we see is that retention is pretty high in terms of continued usage of the protocol, and then in terms of how long they hold the native token rewards afterwards. So I think it varies, but on average it's around 60%. The alternatives that protocols are using to acquire users are liquidity mining and airdrops, which is probably 10% or lower retention. So I think we can say they move from being curious to being literate or savvy. I don't think we can say they're actively contributing to the protocols yet, but we're kind of early on that journey in training users to become contributors still.
Well, in my case, people when finish like the education program, they have like a job basket with companies that are looking for them, if they're interested, of course. And depending on the company, I create some exams for the company to know that it's prepared. For example, imagine someone wants to work in Celo. So I prepare like a specific exam for someone to incorporate to Celo. And like that, people that are interested in Celo because they love Celo, the values, and this type of things, so they can play and try doing the exam. And then we have an incubator for entrepreneurs, because people also have projects or want to create a project. Maybe they don't have the teams, they don't know how to contact with developers. So it's like putting the resources for them and some money and giving them the guidance to work, and also creating solutions for companies. It's like a mixed incubator.
Yeah, that is cool. I wonder what happens on the company side of the conversation. What are they looking for, and do they see, or in your case perhaps, the protocol side, are we meeting their expectations in terms of the community we're bringing in, or in terms of the talent we're bringing in? Perhaps, Carlos, you can start with that question.
Yes, sure. During the course or the program, when they are educating themselves, they start showing to the world what they are doing. Like, I don't know, it's a lot of practice activities, so they show how to do practice activities, and they show to the world. We teach a lot of things. It's like for investors, for professionals, and for entrepreneurs. And as they have a big overview, it's like, okay, people need to work in what they think are good, in what they think they have talent. Because if you look all your life about your abilities, you cannot start growing. So you need to do that match with your force and with your education. So I think that, of course, it's gonna match the expectations of the company, because I have been testing that already.
And what about you, Justine? How are you matching expectations of protocols and applications?
A lot of times protocols will come to us because they want to onboard new users, or they want to include more of the long tail of users, especially DeFi protocols. In many cases, the TVL is made up by six whales, basically. And so they're trying to get more diverse users, and then also that helps to distribute their tokens into more hands and people that might be more active and or vote in a way that's less self-serving than like a large holder of the token would. In terms of helping them find specific types of users, which is basically entirely how Web2 functions, we're really early in doing that. So when we talk to protocols and say, would you like to be able to target a user that knows the following things about DeFi? They're kind of like, we just want users. But I think that's the direction that we'll move in.
I know, Arndt, you guys are just having the initial conversations with companies, but what is your perspective from what the different protocols you're meeting with, what their needs are, and how your product is kind of like also trying to meet their expectations?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things that really matter. One is that having access to a wider audience of people that are not native to crypto yet is a really hard cold start problem for most protocols, right? Because they get distribution among people who are already native to certain products, but they don't reach a wide audience. And so just by providing that audience, I think we get really positive signals from that, because it's a very different position than other experiences would be. So that's that. And I think second, there's just a component to like providing the right tracking and analytics for companies, because not knowing what happened to your audience is probably worse than knowing that they didn't engage with the product after the fact. So then you can make adjustments if you know, right? And so we're very committed to like building these things. And I think early feedback is like, that's what we want. We want to see on chain what happens to these people. We want to see reports on who's taking these classes and so on.
I actually just saw a tweet from Rabbithole. Well, not the tweet was probably older than that. I just saw it about your adventure badges, I believe, and the tweet said that you guys, I believe, were close to 20,000 badges being distributed or being minted, and I thought those numbers are great. I feel like when we talk about onboarding new members into the space, we would like to see numbers like that. So I wanted to see if you have any insight on what happens with those badge holders. What happens when you have 20,000 people engaging with a protocol, learning something in particular? Like, is there something else we can learn from that type of a scale?
Yeah, so I think it was a lot more badges than that, actually. But we gave out adventure badges to replace something that we had called XP. And so when you used to complete tasks on our site, you would get XP. It was a point system, basically. And so it created a gamified experience. But then what we found was like gamified behavior, basically. And so people were completing tasks just to get these XP points because they thought in the future maybe they would be tied to an airdrop or something. That one of our core values is participation is greater than speculation, and so we decided to remove XP from our product, and we still wanted to acknowledge all the XP that people had earned in the past by completing these tasks, so we gave them different levels of adventure badges based on how much, what level they had attained previously. We haven't talked about what functionality adventure badges might unlock, but when we think about our skills, we think that they could provide access to quests, they could provide access to working in parts of our DAO, and then in the future, we hope that external partners will integrate our skills, and then that could, again, give you access to other opportunities in other DAOs and other protocols.
I'm particularly excited about that point. I think that there is a lot we can do with just incentivizing engagement. But there is a lot of values that the community will need to learn to understand crypto, or to get closer to understanding crypto. So, and I agree with participating being more important. So I wonder what are other values that are important for you too, especially Carlos and Arndt, in terms of values the community need to understand in order to really be part of crypto. Perhaps, Arndt, if you want to start.
Yeah, so I don't have a good response from our users yet because we're just getting started. But I think that participation is really important, and I think also just, so we always ask ourselves, do people come here because they want to make a quick buck, right? Or do people actually do something meaningful? And that's really important to us, right? Like, I mean, there's games out there where people only play the game so that they can then make money off the game, but nobody would ever play that game if it wasn't for the money, right? We don't want to be that game. We want to be a platform that you come to as like a destination you can learn, you re-engage with constantly. Sort of like providing a real Web2 product, and I say that without any shame, as a front door to crypto that provides that experience is really important to us. So I think that's sort of like the core value of what we built Cryptohunt on.
What about you, Carlos?
Well, I think about social impact is really important. When I teach the guys that are studying with us, I talk a lot about social impact, and I teach the entrepreneurs that you can create profitable companies, but with the mindset to solve a social problem. You don't always need to create like a product, like to make a business and in 2 or 3 years sell the company. There is also a really good technology that you can use to create social impact. And also I think about learn to earn that you were talking about after. I think that learn to earn is really good for emerging markets because we have a cycle that is not really good. It's like people don't have money, so they cannot study, and if they don't study, they don't have money. So learn to earn is really good for emerging markets, and also that is creating social impact.
Are you guys thinking about emerging markets in the case of you two? Is that in the roadmap?
I would say majority of our user base is outside the US. Majority of our contributors are in the US, so that's interesting. Yeah, we need to do more work with like language support and supporting different time zones, etc. But just kind of naturally, the users that have come to us are outside the US and heavily in Asia.
That's actually quite interesting because same for us. We're very heavily biased towards Europe. And when we think about like making the experience inclusive, language is obviously a barrier. And so we think about that all the time. For now it's English, but we're probably going to widen that and make that more accessible.
I know that on Rabbithole, you can just go into a Discord, find a role pretty easily. I actually really love how you onboard community members. But I find it really fascinating that most of the users are outside the States and contributors inside the States. And to the first question that I ask you, I do wonder if there is at least a few cases you can talk about where someone has gone from a quest taker into a contributor role within Rabbithole and what that story may look like.
Yeah, we have, we definitely have users that have become contributors. I think part of the reason that's easier to do is that the whole Discord is basically in English, and the ways to contribute are all kind of happen on US time zone and in English, and so that's probably why there's this difference between users and contributors. But the contributors that have gone through the path of being a Rabbithole user to contributing in our community basically come through the Discord, get involved in one of the public working groups that we have, and then what we see is they actually become really involved in the community beyond just what the group they're actively contributing in. So we see them answering questions and providing support, and they really kind of take ownership over the whole project. So there's definitely kind of a reinforcing loop that happens in a positive way.
We're getting close to the end, so perhaps to begin to end, I wanted to ask you all what matters the most when you're onboarding new communities to Web3, in your opinion. So I don't know if, Carlos, you want to kick us off.
Repeat, sorry.
What matters the most when you're onboarding new communities to Web3?
I think that Web3 is all about adding value to the new ecosystem that we are living in. And only feeling that I can help to add a little bit more of value, for me is enough, and the purpose to help in that is what make me, or make probably also you, to be all the days working and teaching the people and solving the doubts. So for me, that is the main purpose and what it matters for me. Yes.
I think we think a lot about having a user have a first experience that's safe, secure, reliable, and kind of guided, since the space can be hard to navigate if you don't have a lot of context to start with. And then we spend a lot of time thinking about how do you create the pathways for people to get progressively more involved in the space until they maybe work in Web3 full-time.
So my biggest joy right now in life is whenever somebody signs up who indicates that they're a crypto beginner. That to me makes me so happy. And the day my mom asks me to explain Bitcoin to her will be marked in the calendar as like very special to me. Because that's really what drives us, is like making the experience for people who feel intimidated, right, by this. It's a technical challenge to understand these things. It's a language barrier to understand these things today. And I don't think that we'll end up in a place where you pay with Celo at the gas station if that remains the case, right? So that's why I'm just really driven by just that thing.
Awesome. Well, we are at time. Thank you guys so much for your answers and for your attention. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.